on the way, when I said goodbye to him on the way back, he said, would you, I'm talking about whoever the guy is in the Machabe age. I told him I was leaving, said shalom, and he said, Abba, can you take a couple of men on board? And I said, how can I take men? You know, they have to be in uniform. We're all in uniform. He said, well, what do you want? A British sergeant? Do you want an Australian captain? Do you want an airman first class in New Zealand forces? Apparently they had uniforms for everybody. You know, it was very impressive, both that phone and the fact they had all kinds of uniforms. I'm not absolutely positive that we did. In all likelihood we did, but that's a little vague in my mind. I don't remember that, but I was fascinated by it. Because we had to stop in Greece again for refueling. We wanted to send these two people, not to France, but to Greece.
Oh, so it's very possible you did.
Yeah, yeah. I think we did. I don't have.
Now, you weren't involved in any way with sending guns over to Palestine?
No, just the radio.
Just the radio.
Now, just a second. I don't know what was in it. Those suitcases were so heavy. I don't know what was in those suitcases.
They told you they were radio.
No, I know some of it was.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, some of it was, but the other, but you know, it was heavy enough. I don't know whether radio tubes weighed that much. All kinds of. I don't know what you need. You know, it's the regular, the transmitting equipment. You know, some of it is heavy.
Yeah, it's very heavy.
Yeah, it's heavy stuff. So it could have been. I assumed that that's all it was. I think I asked them that, and they said there was no arms, because that would really compromise me. Radio equipment, you know.
You might get away with.
Yeah.
You have to speak to God.
Yeah. Yeah.
But did you know any people who were involved in sending guns to Palestine?
At that time.
Or any time during this period, you know?
No, not that I know of. Zev was very, very busy. He was doing a lot of other things, and he was speaking to a number. You see, what he would do is just what I'm talking. The way I got that Jeep was the way he might do. When you went to this quartermaster place that I described with the flour, it was a place that was about a mile big, because all of the European supplies, this is the point of it, all the European supplies were being sent to the docks of Marseille, see, for transshipment for the invasion of Japan. See. Now, what happened, of course, is during this period, perhaps there may have been rumors and so on. You had the feeling that, you know, most of that stuff would end up in the French black market. That's what you felt about it. So nobody was above taking stuff for there. You know, I remember we had a Coke machine in our apartment. You know, how we got the Coke? I didn't know it was my doing. My roommate was the general secretary, so he had everything. But you know, not everybody has a Coke machine in his apartment. But that was the kind of thing that you get, you know, from quartermaster, because you think, who's going to send a Coke machine to Okinawa, you know, that sort of thing. Yeah. So it was that kind of supply. I would imagine this was this is non-armament, you know. But I could imagine that out of that stuff here, a few Zev must have picked up some stuff too, because he'd say to the Jew, you know, how about 6 machine guns or something? I'll be honest. Yeah.
But you weren't involved in any
No.
with it. Now, this has taken us up to summer of 1945.
This is during, a lot of this was during the summer of 1945.
Right, and your Palestine trip was in what, again?
August 1945.
August 1945.
I left in September 1945. I left the European theater.
In September 1945. Now, what was your impression of the JDC workers that you had been?
Very good. Very good work.
Did you work in conjunction with them?
Yes, we worked very closely with JDC.
For example, how did you, give me incidents where...
Yeah. Well, I remember, for example, we went to Ort. We sent some people. There's an Ort operation in Marseille, and we'd send people up to Ort. You know, what JDC would work with Ort and so on.
Was there any?
Specifically, I'd be pretty hard to remember. It's just a general. Again, it'd be a matter of the lists and so on, communication, more than anything else, communication. The big job was then finding who was still alive, you know, and communicating back to America. That was really the main thing.
Well, how would you characterize the role of the chaplain during that period of time?
Well, you see, there's very little to do in terms of, there's no military operation on our part. We were trying to just, you know, get enough points to get home. And so that we devoted a great part of our time. Also services. Some of these people came to our, I conducted the service not only for the lay, but I also assisted in the service at the big temple, it's called, and it was the only synagogue in Marseille. Mm-hmm. And a number of these DPs had come to see them. And they'd come, the problems, and you'd sit down with them and you talk to them about whatever problem. It might be medical, quite a number of them may be medical problems.
Your position.
Oh, that was another thing. Oh, yeah, that was another thing too. Supplies. You see, penicillin was a rarity, very big rarity. It was a recent discovery. I met the Sir Alexander Fleming, the inventor. He visited us, and this was a big, big thing. The guy created penicillin, and we were aware of it. It was very, very expensive. In America, you couldn't get that kind of thing, and they're very difficult. And it was to be used for our own men. Now that was the kind of thing. We're talking about signal stuff. We're talking about arms, which I didn't know about. At least I said I didn't know. I don't remember. I kept it out of my mind. And then medical supplies. That was a very, very big thing. Medical supplies. Again, you pick up a Everman, Sergeant Goldstein, from medical supplies. You pick up the stuff. Incidentally, there's a great deal of marché noir, great deal of black market, these fellows going on at that time.
Amongst the Jews?
No, just general.
Just general.
A lot of stuff, you'd, if you go down the Cambière, the main street of Marseille, you'd see the French selling our, Lucky Strikes, it's obviously they've got, in the street. So you're very much aware of it. And there's some men who were made enough money to retire on it.
But you were taking this stuff for the
yeah, so we were using it. But I would underscore the medical thing. It was quite a big thing. I've forgotten about it. As we talk about it, remember.
Who needed this in particular? The people generally? The DPs generally?
A DP would go to the doctor and, whatever he has, and he says, you need this, let's say, some eye problem or something like that. He says, I don't have the medication, but that's what you need for this. See?
So they would come to you
so
or JDC?
Come to me. Well, they might come to JDC, I don't know. I don't know specifically what they did. But, somebody would show up in my office. There'd be a number of people show up in my office, and they'd be DPs, and they'd say, can I get this, and I'd pick up the phone and say, one of my boys, can you get that kind of thing. But incidentally, they did not necessarily only come to me. It was known that Sergeant Goldstein or something was in that thing, so they might communicate directly with him. In other words, we did involve a number, and that was one of the important roles of the chaplains. We did involve a number of our men, enlisted men, in their problems. So they helped out. They got supplies, and there were, of course, a lot of children.
Well, what happened?
For example, parachutes. See, parachutes are made of silk.
Mm-hmm.
The women needed clothes. You bring home a couple of parachutes, surplus parachutes, and you cut it up and made 50 dresses. That sort of. That's what I'm talking about, supplies. You don't know, think of that.
Yeah. So that there was uniqueness in your role, that you were in position to. Did you have to get this Sergeant Goldstein to get the material? Would he have initiated this on his own? Would he have the position to?
Both. Our main role was insensitizing, if I can use that horrible word, to them. To the we talk about it Friday night afterwards. We talk about we got to help these people.
But generally, they wouldn't have done it on their. They wouldn't have taken the initiative.
No, they didn't know about it. They'd have no way of knowing. Except you'd be sitting here, at services, and you'd be sitting next to DP, and you'd start. So there could be that direct communication as well. But these guys would not necessarily have to come to services.
Mm-hmm. So you got the people who weren't only in services, but generally.
The key people. I'll give you an illustration of Army procedure, which has nothing to do with this, but it just gives you an indication. When I was stationed at Fort Dix, I was in a car going to New York, and I saw a colonel with a finance officer on it, the star, the diamond. And I said, hey, Colonel, where are you located? He said, it's Second Service Command of Governor's Island. I said, what do you do? He said, I'm the dispersing officer. And then, of course, we were riding for an hour. He said, I write checks every month for $500 million, $500 million. So I said to the Colonel, that's enough. Are you bonded? And these accountants, they don't necessarily have a good sense of humor. He said, oh, of course I'm bonded. He said, but of course, Chaplain, you ought to know this. I can only write checks up to $6 million. I said, whom do you write to? He said, well, we buy, say, 50 aircraft from Republic Aviation, you know, where it is from Grobman Aircraft, and the check might be $110 million, you know. He says, you know, a big check over $6 million, he said, I have to call Washington. Up to that I can do myself, because I'm bonded. I said, whom do you speak to in Washington? He says, oh, Sergeant Goldstein, you know, that sort of thing. This is a funny thing, Sergeant Goldstein, is it okay to write this $110 million check, you know? Well, that's a very revealing thing, because it reveals to you that the way things are done in the Army are not through the officers. A simple illustration. Year 1, Seder 1. Seder 1 was at Fort Dix. I needed eggs, I needed all the supplies. So what I did know, I was a neophyte. I went into the mess officer, captain, whom I didn't know in particular. My name is Lieutenant Kertzer, chaplain. I said, I need 12 dozen eggs. So he said, fine, fill out the form, there's all, you know, that sort of thing. And it may be yes, maybe no, we'll have it, you know. And you may get it after Pesach and so on, you know, that sort of thing, all the stuff you needed. And it was a routine, it was a very involved thing, see. But next year, see, already when I was overseas for the next Seder, you see, say Marseille, who bothers to go to the mess officer? Again, you go to the Goldstein, the big Goldstein, said, buddy, send me over this. Not eggs, we couldn't get that, was the story I described. But, you know, whatever the supplies were. Mm-hmm. And, you know, there are a lot of things go on. For example, we needed wine for Pesach. So they deliver, I'm only a captain, they deliver the colonel, not the Fay, one of his buddies, who was a lush, and he drank the whole wine up before Pesach. Wine, I drank the whole wine. So he was sent from Corsica. Oh, he just said drink the wine up, you know. So what we had to do is, you know, I had to go out again, you know, you get the chanetza, so to speak. Yeah. You did it. Now you don't fill out forms anymore. You go to the key mess sergeant, and you know he takes care of you. So you walk into the kitchen, say, buddy, this is what I need. Well, this is that kind of informal operation, which you knew when you had a little sophistication about the Army, enabled you to do things medically, food-wise, transportation-wise.
Mm-hmm. Did you help them with transportation?
Yes, sure. That was another thing. Suppose a fellow needed to get into Marseille to a doctor or something like that, you know, or meet a relative or something like that.
Because they weren't permitted at that point to move around.
No, so they're right there.
So you had to provide transportation.
Transportation be another one. Again, they're not too extensive, but you know, when it was necessary.
Mm-hmm. Were there any other aspects that you were involved with?
I think, no. What I'm doing here is deliberately trying to convey things that were not in with an H. Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. With an H brings some of the sense of it in it, but not complete. You know, more than anything else is, you know, bringing comfort to them, you know, just to tell them, you know. I have a very beautiful story there of the old rabbi of Bialystok. Did you read the book?
No, that's why I wanted to.
It's a beautiful story. You know, we went on, this is described a little bit, but I'll give you the details of it. Okay. The war, there are 85 piers, docks, with shiploads going out to the Pacific, either the men or, more importantly, men, the equipment, the arms and such. So there's a tremendous sense of pressure that the stuff had to go out fast. In Mittendrin, all of a sudden, out come these 650 Jews who are to be sent to Aliyah Aleph, you know, sent to Palestine. Now, the orders called for them to leave at noon on Saturday. This is something which we didn't help, but it's an interesting story. A couple of the leaders come to me and say, Shabbos, we kept Shabbos in Kosher and Buchenwald in Marseille when they were liberated. The Americans make us leave on Shabbos. I said, look, these are life and death questions, you know. Every few hours another ship leaves, you know. Yeah. The schedule calls for you to leave at this particular time. And they said, well, you know, you're supposed to try. You're supposed to, you know, the Shasat Chak, emergency, you had to do it. They said, no, these fellows said. I can't recall. I think a couple of them were rabbis, I'm not sure. And the old man, too. Now, he was sick. He wasn't involved in, I'll tell you, the Bialystok man. But they said to us, the din is that you're supposed to exhaust every remedy. I said, I've exhausted the remedy. I've gone to the port major, who was one of my men, who was Jewish, and I said, look, can you move this to Sunday? Any other day to Sunday? And he said, absolutely not. So, from my mind, I'd exhausted. They didn't do this. They went over my head. They go to the commanding colonel, the commander of the port, battalion, the port, you know, and there was a port battalion, but I think the port battalion man I went to, somebody over him in charge of the whole port, the director of the port, he's a full colonel, and they said, they told him just that, what I'm just telling you. Are you going to make us violate the Sabbath? And he moved it to Sunday. What can I do? Shows you that was one case where the chaplain didn't work. The beautiful story that I tell was they told us when we got on board, there's a baby, brand new baby that was born. This woman had hurried up because no pregnant women were allowed on that ship. This is the legal ship. That's the legal ship. Yeah. The illegal ship I wasn't permitted to go. I didn't see her. And as Ed went, I think Shimon went out. Shimon saw it, but I didn't see that. But I went on board, and there's these, as I say, Buchenwald 300 were on there, and they said, you know, they didn't blame the Nazis. They said they were simply the instruments of God to punish the Jews for their lack of adherence to, you know, they weren't pious enough. Well, so they told us that if you go into cabin so-and-so, that there's a great, you know, tzaddik there. And we were in, I think, about 8, 9 of us, officers, and maybe a couple of enlisted men, so I think about 8 of us. We went in there, and they're sitting propped up in the bed here like this. The fellow that flung it, he looked like Moshe Rabbeinu, I'm telling you. Yeah. He was a Rabbi Bialystok, but he was sick, and he just, they practically had to carry him on board. He was I'd estimate in his 80s. And his main interest was in dying, you know, in Israel. And we all went, shalom, and talked to him in Yiddish, you know. We only took the fellows who could talk Yiddish. We went in and greeted him and so on and wished him well. And we went out, you can just picture a cabin door, you know. I was the last to go on, he shook hands, and I got to the door, and he said, come back. He said, I'm going to, you know, I'm a clean-shaven guy, of course. And he called me Rabbi, you know, something. He said, I'm going to Eretz Israel to die, something like that, you know. Yeah.
It didn't express exactly that way. You're going with God's help back to America to live. He said, let's the Bakosha. He said, Benchmere. You know, I couldn't get over it. You know, how could he ask me to bench him? You know? He said, if it weren't for you American Jews, he said, there's no reason to live in Buchenwald. He said, only the thought that somewhere in the world there are free Jews. He said, you kept us alive. The thought of you sustained us. And the thought that you were coming and so on sustained us. That's why I want me to mention it. It's very beautiful. I think that's about all outside the book, unless you can pry it loose from somewhere.
Did you work within any camps itself?
Oh, we visited camps. Which camps do you mean?
Well, any camps. Which camps were
we went to both camps.
To
both we went to the one outside Marseille, actually, is where is a staging area. The troops that we're talking about, who went to Paris, who went to Japan, you know, to the Pacific-bound troops, were located about near Aix-en-Provence. There are 3 camps there, and that was my well. If they had a Jewish chaplain, okay. If they did, there are also some field hospitals there.
There were Jews involved.
So I used to come. I was the chaplain to cover those 3 staging areas. Now, next to that, one of those staging areas was the staging area for the DP. So you know, I covered all 4.
Mm-hmm.
One of the big things they said, give us a ride to town. That was a big thing for me. I wouldn't give it to them. You know, we're not supposed to. You know, unless they there's some kind of emergency.
You weren't one of the first chaplains into these camps.
Well, I was the only chaplain at Hazelcorn and I.
So
which
what
camp
was
are you talking about?
In Marseille?
Yeah.
So
there were no other chaplain.
So that what was your experience within the concentration camps?
Well, you're talking about concentration camps.
Yeah, you weren't.
No, I'm not talking about.
What about?
I didn't get to know. I got to know. I wasn't near Germany.
Near Germany. What about
after the war.
What about the DPs? You
These are all DPs in that staging area.
Right,
These are DPs. The ones I most clearly identify were the ones from Buchenwald. I don't know why.
And what happened to those from Buchenwald?
Well, they are the ones, you know, first of all, they'd come to you and ask you, you know, get us on the ship. And, you know, that was a big thing. You know. The You're talking about protect you. Help us, you know. And but I'd say 95% of the problems had to do with communicate with our relatives to tell them that we're still alive.
What about packages? Were you involved in that business? Sending over having
from where to where?
From American Jewelry, sending over packages.
No, because this is too early. I left, you see. Most of the activity took place after I left. Yeah. My successor, Abe Hasselkorn, did a lot.
Okay.
And his assistants. Incidentally, our assistants were, when I talk about our assistants, had a lot to do. I mentioned in my book Saul Loeb. I don't know. Now, Saul Loeb remained after me. Saul Loeb. He is with Philip Morris right here in town. He's down at 100 Park Avenue. He's just around the corner here. Saul might be able to tell you some more stories. He's the public relations director for Philip Morris, which is a Jewish company, isn't it? They own Miller High Life beer and so on.
That's interesting.
They're at 100, that's just one block down from Grand Central.
Well, you think I should go without an appointment?
Well, no, I would call him. Maybe in Europe, you know.
Okay.
Go downstairs, call Philip Morris and ask Saul Loeb and say, as a matter of fact, I might go down with you when we leave, and I'll call him, I'll say hello to him.
Okay.
Find out whether, I can't recall how long afterwards he stayed, but then he was probably the chaplain to my successor. And when my successor came, can't even recall which one it was.
You said Hasselkorn.
No. Oh, well, Hasselkorn, we were both there at the same time. I think Hasselkorn took over my duties. There was another chaplain.
Breslau?
He was there, too. I met him there. Was he, are you talking about Breslau?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or Washington?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he was there just as but was he in the Army? Or was he?
Yeah.
JWB. Yeah.
We talked about the JDC, the Jewish Agency, anything with UNRWA?
Nothing spectacular except that we, you mean UNRWA helping them?
Well, were you involved with UNRWA at all in any way?
They were just sending up them. Okay.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I told Gary Bernstein, my assistant, he was one of these operators. He's got a terrific job. He's a school teacher now. Has a very big job. He's the guy who introduced Smirnoff vodka here to this country. He's quite a guy. He got this job through the army, through Marseille. But at all events, he was this kind of operator at all kinds of things, you know. And, footmen in the house. We had a 7-room apartment. All of this towards the end of it, because I was his roommate. But and I had to go home in emergency leave. My father died. He wrote me out an order and signed it General Rattay, R-A-T-A-Y. General Rattay was an idiot, a real idiot. You know, he cared about horses and women. You know, this is a part that's not in my book, but it's incredibly the way. You know, Watergate happened every day in the army. You know, when we seized Marseille, they took over. They captured generals and their mistresses. So what did they do with the mistresses? They kept them in their homes and they took over them. The generals our generals took over them you know, with his horses and stuff. But then General, I'd tell you that's what he's interested. These are generals, not field generals. These are generals at headquarters, you know, supply headquarters. Like it's called PBS, Peninsula Base Section General. And Rattay was his boss. And Rattay would, you know, I picked up the phone. There's a general on the phone. And he'd say, is Gary in? I said, yeah, he's taking a shower. Ask him what the UNRWA means. He didn't know what UNRWA meant.
Oh, my goodness.
The guy came and just says, I'm from UNRWA. He didn't know what it was.
What is UNRWA?
What does UN stand for? He didn't know.
This is a general.
He was the commanding general of all southern France. Everything south of Paris belonged to him. So when you say what we did for UNRWA, at least we told the general what it was. That's how I know that we didn't have anything involved in it, because it was near the end of my tour of duty.
Is there anything else on this period?
I think that's it.
Okay, fine. Thank you very much.